on, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Is Studio Series Transformers 1 Starscream better than his Siege counterparts? Throughout the years, we've seen a few different takes on the old Cybertronian Tetrajet, surprisingly more than we have new Earth-based molds, though 86 finally aims to change that. Neither of the recent outings have managed to outdo the 2019 classic, but this here, it might just be that next step. Tetrajet mode is pretty good. The top is super snazzy, nice and compact, with great panel management. It's a massive step up from the gappiness of the High Moon rendition, or the aesthetic kerfuffle of the Bumblebee one, though the latter was more to do with screen accuracy. On the topic, part of me wishes the wings were bigger, but they're actually bigger than the model they're based on, likely a consequence of the conversion. Still, by virtue of being a deluxe, the underside is going to be significantly messier. That's fine, it's just the cost of doing deluxe business, but as a result, I think these two end up tied in vehicle mode. Transformation ain't as good though, but it's still quite fun for a Studio Series Deluxe. It's absolutely got that modern Kunihiro charm with how it handles some of its kibble, even if by and large the pieces end up in the same place as they would on the Siege version. It's far from the best the line has to offer conversion-wise, but if you're into the transformation style Studio Series brings, you'll like this one. Probably not love it, but it's still fun to flip back and forth. And the Robo mode is almost there. The detail is very lovely on this. You can tell they've put a lot of effort into recreating his character design and silhouettes than, say, Bumblebee. There's not a lot of paint on show, but where it does show up, it does quite well. I still much prefer if they'd gone for the metallic look, but I think that ship has sailed. Profit margins have increased, and paintwork is going to suffer. Despite not having the best articulation, it's quite an expressive piece, and wonderfully makes use of its deep ankles. Also, stand ports. Yes, thank you! It does fall short in a few areas though. Again, due to the fact it's a deluxe, the articulation is a little lacking in some areas. Wrists, ankles, and waist are all on the chopping block, to make way for the more complex backpack. Said backpack can also be a pain with how many hinges it uses, and I really don't like how the wingtips fall forwards instead of backwards. The gun is also a bit iffy. I get the necessity to make it do something, but this is pretty daft. Also, the head sculpt is way too stretched, and that neck is really out of place. Ultimately, this is a very good deluxe. Wouldn't mind collecting a bunch of these, especially at the deluxe price. More than I can say for the last two Tetrajet attempts. It's a nice throwback to the classics lineup, and it lays the groundwork for a whole plethora of similar seekers. It's no Siege Tetrajet though. It just doesn't have the same prestige that mold has, with its simple brilliance. But honestly, it doesn't have to. It does what it does pretty damn well, and even if it's not the greatest figure ever, not every figure has to be. 2025 is the year when Hasbro has opened the doors on remaking their older figures. Between the currently released Bumblebee movie Bumblebee, the upcoming Titan-class Grimlock, and Leader Class 07 Optimus Prime, I've been thinking about other figures that could really use another go-around. So, here's my top 5 that I'd like to see. In 5th place, Dark of the Moon Megatron. I get the idea with the original trying to insist the vehicle mode and the robot mode both remain in scale, but it just ended up with a transformation that's all panels and a robot mode that's way too blocky. Would love to see a new take on it that's closer to the original Voyager scheme, and including a trailer hitch if possible. In 4th place, Revenge of the Fallen Soundwave. Do I even need to explain this one? When the Legends figure from 16 years ago gives you a more cohesive alt mode, you know you're f***ed up. Please actually give him a proper satellite mode this time, and some actual paint, though they've been skimping a lot on paint recently, so maybe this one isn't particularly likely. At slot number 3, Rise of the Beast Nightbird. I know it's another unlikely one, as we've just gotten the figure a few years back, but I really love this design, and so far, none of the toys have really done her justice. Just not that complex of a design. Why do they have to keep overcomplicating her with massive backpacks? At number 2, Last Night Crosshairs. I know many are perfectly fine with this, but I just can't agree. It's just so lacking in its kibble management and paintwork. I get it's a tough one, but I know they can do better. And for my number 1 spot, 07 Barricade. One of my absolute faves from the original film, just shut out with a figure that feels like you're gonna break it every time you mess with it. Modern engineering could really do wonders for him, because as it stands, the original deluxes should not be better than the Studio Series version, but that's just my own personal desires. I'm well aware everyone's going to have their own justifications on why other characters need an update more. Hopefully we'll see all those in time too, as well as continuing the last few Bayverse releases they need to do. What is the most forgotten G1 toy? Is it one that never showed up in the cartoon? Perhaps one that never got a modern update? Or what about one that seldom appeared in any fiction since, or perhaps at all? Well, I've certainly got a contender, a figure that's even oft forgotten in G1 circles. The Tycho Electric Train and Battle Set, colloquially known as Battle Train, is a piece of merchandise that barely counts as an actual Transformer, but still holds a lot of love to those who have it or are trying to hunt it down. It can be quite elusive if you don't know where to look. And I got mine for free from a co-worker of a friend who found it in his attic. I don't know what's with me getting free super rare G1 train Transformers lately, but hey, I'm not complaining. You get 4 really nice train components, all silver and extremely weighty. It's clear these are specifically designed to be model trains first, Transformers second, kinda like the way Masterpiece Gut-Eye figures were, funnily enough. Coincidentally, they actually scale perfectly with the MPG train bots by virtue of using the same HO gauge scale. MPG Battle Train win! The sticker detail is pretty nice, and I'm quite fortunate that this copy has held up over the years, mostly. I don't have the cardboard buildings, but ah well. The playmat it comes with is also quite lovely, clearly photographed from a model train terrain area. I'm somewhat fortunate this accessory has lasted this long, along with the instruction manual. It's a nifty glimpse into the past, and honestly a lot easier to follow than many modern toys. That's a bit disappointing on the state of modern Transformers instructions. Of course, what good is a Transformers product if you can't transform it in some sense? Shut up. Well, one of them only has a radar dish fold up, so I don't know if that really counts. And another is missing its big off cannon, but hey, I didn't pay for this. Beggars can't be choosers. And the other two really make it worth it, with this awesome base folding out and this killer jet. The latter very much feels like a custom triple changer thing I would have made as a kid. Then you bring in the decoys, some of which are, funnily enough, copied from other designs outside of Transformers, and you get a nice playset dealie. This set is very much an acquired taste, and I'm not sure I would have bothered to hunt one down if not given this opportunity. But it's a remarkable piece for the time, and having it now, I kinda wish it was given more attention. Possibly a double homage in SS86 concept series, combining rails and this thing. I don't know, just putting that thought out there. If Hashtag don't, maybe some of you fine fandom creatures can cook up some concepts. So recently, Brawl and Blastoff dropped in Australia, extremely early, but I'm not complaining. And with their drop, I'm seeing something a bit ridiculous. For whatever reason, people are insisting that Blastoff is a retool of Fireflight and Slingshot. And what? What the hell are you talking about? Sure, the legs are similar in conversion, but the parts are wholly different. And the top section has virtually nothing in common, copying the G1 toy instead with its shuttle front forming. This seems absurd, but if you look at the history of the fandom, there's actually always been confusion with what the term retool means. There's a reason Silverbolt Retool became such a meme for years. People get confused and conflated. So let's dispel misinformation. A retool, or as Hasbro calls it, a partial, is when they take an existing 3D design and adjust it. It can be as simple as changing a head, as minor as changing a few pieces here and there, as substantial as swapping out a few sprues, or as complex as taking the CAD model and changing practically every piece of it. But there's something important to note with this. It requires taking an existing design and modifying it, not taking existing transformation steps and copying them. Just because 2 or more figures share transformation schemes doesn't mean they're retools. It just means that the designer used a scheme that they knew worked and applied it to a new figure. They're still making a new figure from the ground up, it's just being applied differently. Take SS86 Devastator, for instance. Being designed by the same guy, he's essentially taken all the original ideas of the Combiner Wars version and reinterpreted them with a bigger budget, allowing the set to reach the greatness that was never possible before. Is this a retool? Well, no. Some of the transformations are similar, but it's a completely new figure from the ground up. Remixing old ideas isn't retooling, and this categorically isn't a retool as they set up the CAD model from scratch. Same deal with the Chug figures copying Masterpiece conversion schemes. If the work's already been done before, why would they bother doing everything again? Hell, Hasbro sometimes uses transformation schemes from established third parties, whether coincidentally or on purpose. Would you consider these retools when the designers physically don't have access to the original IP theft CAD models? No. It's remixing of old ideas, often referred to as shared engineering, though that's an even more nebulous term that practically means everything. So no, Blastoff isn't a retool, and Hasbro isn't secretly out to get you and sell you the same toy 5 billion times over. Shut up. And even if things are retools, turns out they can be pretty damn cool. So perhaps it's better not to get caught up in the idea of what copies what, and instead sit back and just enjoy the toys for what they are. But the main ingredient remains the same. A mammoth. Don't sleep on this figure, please don't. Age of the Prime's Big Convoy, somehow keeping his original name, is probably the most surprised I've been by a figure all year. I went into this fellow a little bit tepid. While the initial reveal was pretty nice, the subsequent stock photos weren't doing it justice. As well as this, I've sort of been a bit lukewarm to most of the Beast releases since Kingdom ended. None of the ones that released in Legacy really hit the same spot of brilliance, especially the anime-exclusive characters. Lio Convoy was fine, but nothing special, and I must be the Grinch this Christmas because I felt nothing from Magmatron. I only really kept around the latter on the off chance he paired really well with Big Convoy, but even then I was starting to feel a bit indifferent in the lead up to its release. Well, consider me in shoe-eating mode because Big Convoy is awesome. Easily the best leader class figure I've gotten in a very long time, a massive chunkster of brilliance. Mammoth mode finally brings back that denseness and handcrafted details I've been missing. As far as I can gather, they never really stopped the practice of outsourcing bestial detail to specialized freelancers, but this finally recaptures that ruggedness I've been longing for since Kingdom. It's a heavy motherfucker. The densest and heaviest leader I've come across in ages. It doesn't have much articulation, aside from the trunk being shy in the ears, farting out the back and some leg motion, but it doesn't really need to. It looks fantastic regardless, and it perfectly makes sense with the way the engineering works. Speaking of, this has got to be one of the best shell formers we've gotten in ages. Shell formers as a concept aren't bad, it's more how they're done that causes issues. And this is done extremely well. Everything feels super satisfying, nothing feels thin and flimsy. Everything is chunky and has a purpose. It's like a souped up, less clashy version of Kingdom Rhinox. I personally already like that figure, but even if you hated it, this will make you feel good things. And the robot mode is just phenomenal. It gives you both the leader chunkiness and complexity, blowing previous smaller leaders before him out of the water. He's covered in paint, sculpted immaculately, and is a limber motherfucker. He might be a smidge kibbly, and his kibble usage is a bit daft, even if it is accurate, but the kibble keeps to itself incredibly well. Stock photos and in-hand pics seem to paint him as this mess of random parts that don't fit anywhere, but in both modes it couldn't be further from the truth. Every piece has its place, feeling wonderfully classic with its kibble usage, but benefiting from the modern sensibilities of solidity. Really, the only thing I can criticize is the arms unpegging too easily, but even then there's a reason. They just got too ambitious with the butterfly joints, which, yeah, it's an issue, but at least it comes from a place of care. I love this thing, I really do. I know many compare him to the original, see the shrunken size, and write it off immediately. I don't own that figure, so I can't comment on it, but I can say that as its own thing, he's probably one of the best figures of the toy line. Not the best, but definitely up there. He's a figure I haven't been able to keep my fingers off for the past several days, and none of the luster has been lost. Would the original be better for some people watching this video? Maybe. I can't really say, to be honest, but I can say one thing. This figure is good.
I'll be back!
We all have our grails. We all have those figures that we strive to get, but are stupid expensive and often outside our reach. They're really cool to strive for, to hunt for years and years until you finally get access to them. A while back, I put out a short explaining my 5 big ones, and since then I've been fortunate enough for my community to assist me in getting 2 of them. I'm forever grateful, make no mistake, but while some are fantastic, others don't always live up to the hype. I remember seeing Year of the Horse Optimus Prime in my local Target as a kid, back when they used to actually stock Transformers properly. I actually went on to work at that Target, funnily enough, though it got shut down. But since then, I've always had a desire to grab one of my own, as back then there was no way I was affording this thing with my own pocket money. Eventually, one of my friends in the YouTube space sourced me this, and I'm still very grateful for that. But for the toy itself, well, I'm feeling oddly empty about it. The trailer, okay, I knew it was always going to be a nothing element for me. I mean, it's entirely made of clear plastic, something that, putting aside strength issues, I've just never been a fan of personally. But the truck itself? In stock photos, the red looked extremely deep and rich, but in person it just looks sun-faded and muddy. I assumed the chrome would be resplendent, but I don't know, it just looks tacky here. It also feels weirdly hollow and rattly, which is not common for this mold at all. And some of those swells in the plastic concern me. It's still the MP10 mold, it's still got all of that fantastic detail that it's known for, but I don't know, something just feels missing. Robot mode sadly isn't anything better. The whole thing feels super rickety and cheap, like a knockoff more than an official masterpiece. I've experienced this sort of shitty build quality before on the Ghostbusters version, and it's honestly baffling. Is every Hasbro version just shit in the builds while the Takara ones just do things a lot better? Am I getting that right? I don't know. The blue is about as dull as before, and the red on the pelvis looks incredibly out of place and is just, I don't know, lacking a certain presence. He's still the MP10, and the Hasui-led design remains ever fantastic, but this just feels like a bootleg of a bootleg, not a proper Hasbro product. Serves me right for trusting Platinum, should have trusted my previous experience with the toy line. Maybe if I got this as a kid, I would have liked it a lot more. Maybe I would have engaged with the deco to a greater extent, developing a nostalgia for it, before being blown away by the Evangelion release. But I just don't feel anything from this, and it's a real shame. It feels like I've broken a promise from childhood me. I feel almost guilty. I never put him on any of the worst lists because I couldn't bear the fact that I disliked a toy I've wanted for literal decades, that it could in fact disappoint me. So I left it in the box and forgot about it, which, let's be real, isn't very healthy. Oh well, I guess you can't win them all. Sometimes grails aren't all they cracked up to be. Sometimes you gotta just accept that the rose-tinted glasses don't always work, and some experiences are better left to the imagination. Titans are sorta weird. When I was a kid, I'd always look up to them and think they were the be-all end-all. But honestly, now that I'm an adult, most of them just don't do anything for me. The majority of them just seem to come across as giant slabs of plastic. Their size is the only thing they really offer, as is their playability, and functions just don't match their inflated price points. I totally understand that the bigger you go, the more exponential the plastic costs are, but from a figure perspective, most just don't do it for me. There are exceptions though, and I think the most prominent ones are the types that shrink down and do more creative things with their budget. Not everything is about being massive, and sometimes being a little smaller is somewhat better. And this is why, despite being the newest with the most recency bias, Star Convoy is easily my favorite Titan class figure. Beyond the fact that it is basically everything I could have wanted from the original concept, is just great. The functionality keeps going and going. There's always new stuff to engage with. Some silly, sure, but some brilliant. The engineering is wonderful, the perfect recreation of a great G1 conversion. It's a skill to recognize when to keep things the same and when to improve them, and this is definitely a case where they chose correctly. And in both modes, he retains all the presence without actually needing the size. See, the thing about presence is it's kept in design, in sculpting and paintwork. Raw size doesn't actually make the figure feel big. It's what you do with it. And with a few exceptions, Star Convoy does way better at conveying his size than those who came before him. All of those sweet, sexy angles, all of that chunkitude. There's really nothing in my collection quite like it, save for maybe the Combiners and I guess Tidal Wave. But even then, Tidal Wave seems like a stepping stone to what Star Convoy achieved, and it's only going to get better. He's a bloody fantastic figure right off the bat. What happens when I eventually apply Toy Hacks, which I've already purchased? Or what about the upcoming DNA design kit? This is the best use of upgrades, taking exceptional figures to even higher heights. I love this thing, and I'm never going to stop loving it. It's done everything I wanted it to do since I first started collecting as a kid. A figure practically tailor-made for me. I know that's a bit of a contentious stance, as many cite the lore and pricing implications as reasons for him not existing, but those that own him are often blown away by him too, so he's gotta be doing something right. And yeah, at least for me, he's right in the position I want him. The position of awesomeness. Whenever I review something, I always try to leave it for at least a couple of weeks before I even think about writing a script. There are very few times where I felt confident enough to go ahead regardless, and even fewer where that's actually resulted in a video at the end of it. The honeymoon phase is a very real thing, as is the reverse, the period of disappointment. I was initially excited for NewAge Sixshot, to the point where I splurged on the special edition with the extra chrome plating. It was the first NewAge figure I'd bought in a while, and I was eager to get back into their ecosystem, but like many others, I couldn't help but feel a bit underwhelmed. Part of it is the same complaints everyone else has. Sixshot often works best when the design is fairly simple, and NewAge is anything but. There's so many panels upon panels, none of it overly frustrating or confusing, but not particularly fun either. It just feels like transformation bloat, only there to jack up the price and seem clever without actually being so. It's not very characteristic of the company, and it leads to a figure that's only really an incremental step from the last attempt coming from Iron Factory, which itself was so iconic within the niche that it got KO'd into a billion other versions. But part of it is also the nature of the thing. It's just not the kind of Legends figure I'm into. It's not small, it's basically a deluxe at this point, and the proportions really hammer that home. I get that's somewhat accurate, but I just prefer smaller desk toys that you can flip back and forth endlessly, which is what endears me to their other catalog a lot more. So that's it, right? A disappointing release. What can you really do? Well, turns out, you can wait. As the weeks went past, I slowly found myself opening up to this figure. Eventually, I became a bit more immersed in the conversion, figuring out where all the bits go and such. And there are really clever aha moments, especially on the insides of the legs. It doesn't lead to anything super special in any of the 6 ends, because the designs always sort of turn into a big pile of nothing, but it does lead to an experience that is okay at least. Think of it as a fans toys release, shrunken down and minus the ridiculousness. And hey, it does look really nice. It does feel better than the previous Legends outing, maybe not the Just a Toys version, but definitely the other proper Legends one. It's still got that new age charm with the on-point head sculpts, even if I personally find it a bit big, crisp and purposeful detail, fantastic build quality, and pretty good paint. They've even done a bang-up job recreating the old stickers without them looking gaudy, something other third parties often get wrong, but NewAge actually has a track record for getting right with. So yeah, it's not the best figure ever, but it isn't the worst either. Imagine if I'd put a review or a doc take out in the first week. Imagine if I'd rushed to call this the literal worst thing ever, ignoring all the qualities it does actually have. There are toys that deserve the ire, but this just isn't one of them. Maybe it's not quite worth the price they're asking, as it is pretty steep, but ultimately this is a fairly fun figure and I'm glad to have it. I don't think my Legends Sixshot itch has properly been scratched, as the ceiling is still much higher to reach, but yeah, I guess it'll do for now. Can't imagine the Magic Square version will be much better. They couldn't even get 3 modes right, let alone 6. Over the past year or so, I've seen a lot of complaints that modern Titans don't feel like Titans. Even before the advent of Star Convoy, people were getting infuriated that the design team was prioritizing engineering and build quality over sizing specifically. So many prayers for Hasbro to return to big and overly simple figures, because modern Titans aren't real Titans. But you know what? Seeing where we came from previously, I think I'm happier with where we are now. There's not many toys where the G1 version is unequivocally better, but Titans Return Fortress Maximus is most certainly one of them. I think many of us are quick to forget that nobody liked this thing when it first dropped. The robot mode is okay, I suppose. Head sculpt is pretty nice, but the actual mechanical detail and colors are just so bland. It's just endless swaths of grey and muted turquoise, colors that would be fine if the mechanical detail amounted to anything, but with this aimless Prime Wars-esque styling, it just looks uninteresting as f***. The salient feature, meant to be the clear chunk on the torso, just looks dull because, oh, we have to be realistic with the paint scheme. Meanwhile, Takara Legends proved just going toon accurate would actually make it incredibly lush instead, but what do I know? I'm not 2010's Hasbro, my opinion is invalid. Without upgrades, there's no ankles, so posing is immensely limited. And although he's one of the few to have articulated fingers, he has no proper weapons unless you splurge on the Hasbro Asia Matrix Blade or get a third-party version. The standalone robot is fine, sure, but it just feels so underdone compared to more modern attempts. It doesn't feel like a figure in its own right, just an obligation to have the head do something. Also, remember how awesome the base mode was on the G1 version? Well, here he's just laying down doing the splits. Why would you do that? Why did this have to be a retool of Metroplex? All the charm is immediately lost. And I know there's fan modes, but why put in all that extra effort to fix something that's bad to begin with? And sure, the spacecraft mode is fine, but that was always just a robot lying down anyway. They've taken the path of least resistance here, done the bare minimum to represent this character. This is what Titans were back in the 2010s. From this point, they slowly began getting smaller and better. Yes, they can still make Titans huge, but what's the point if they're just gonna be awful? I'm glad we have Titans like Star Convoy and Tidal Wave these days. We don't need big, dumb, boring pieces of plastic that do nothing. Size isn't everything, it's how you use it. So the recent round of Transformers reveals have been controversial to say the least. Probably the most so in recent years. Figures that don't seem to hold a candle to predecessors that dropped 8 years ago, re-releases of figures people spent a shitload of money on when they'd been asking for new versions instead, and yeah, no, not kicking that hornet's nest. But one thing I didn't expect is the return of upside-down laser pistol discourse. Like, really? We're doing this again? So, what am I talking about? Well, you'll notice that the new Shockwave, a retool of the Siege version, features an alternate mode that has been turned upside down. It's still basically a laser pistol, nothing stopping you from doing it the right way up, and yet, on principle, a good chunk of people are getting quite furious. How dare they not advertise Shockwave as a gun? How dare they bend over backwards to the Actually, who is pushing for this marketing choice? Well, the issue is basically twofold. Half of it is the lore, half of it is backlash. You may notice that all gun toys these days, realistic or not, feature a big daft orange cap on the edge. Even if it's not realistic, it's always there simply to indicate it's not real. Is this a bit silly? Probably, but it's the lore. And by advertising this as a space cruiser, they don't have to fall to the same scrutiny as those kinds of toys. Now, this method has its limits. You still won't see an upside-down YOTH P38, but it does help these figures release without these stupid limitations. Secondly, and this might piss you off, parent groups. Lots of people love to point to Nerf Gun Megatron from back in Classics as an example of them able to do this in the past, but aside from replica firearm laws being stricter these days than back in 2006, that toy ensured they would never do anything like that again. The backlash from parents was so severe that they didn't even try for ages, excluding Legends class. When they did go back to something even remotely similar with the release of Titan's Return Sixshot, this is when they started to implement the Submarine Mode workaround. Yes, this is frustrating, but ultimately a method to ensure sales remain. Fact is, kids don't buy figures for themselves, parents do, especially with how expensive these are these days. And whether you agree with the parents' priorities or not, those are the decisions they're going to make. So for now at least, we're stuck with Shockwave's having this particular alternate mode. And hey, literally nothing is stopping you from flipping it the right way up, nothing at all. It's a funny quirk of advertising, but otherwise essentially a non-issue. It's your collection, it doesn't matter. Have Shockwave be a gun, call the cassettes what you want, give Nest Bumblebee a G1 name for all I care. They're just toys, and once they're out of the box, they're yours to do with as you wish. Is Hasbro re-releasing too many reissues? It's 2026 and this is probably going to date this video terribly, but this year especially, Hasbro's gotten in the habit of re-releasing a whole slew of figures. Whether re-releasing as is or updating the packaging to fit the new style, many older and desirable figures are coming back with a vengeance. There's definitely pros and cons to this method. On one hand, a lot of newer collectors deserve access to these. So many of these releases are stupidly expensive on the aftermarket, and some of them even had issues that caused immense anguish. So a chance to bring these back, especially on a wider scale, is greatly appreciated. But on the other hand, some of these choices feel a little annoying when they could have warranted newer molds. You can't tell me Greenlight is still up to par these days, a shit mold that becomes an even shittier combiner. Bad by the standards of the time and even worse today. But of course, budgets are tight. Gotta funnel all that extra revenue into Christopher Yacht Fund. So the designers filling those gaps with figures that people want is a good way to compromise. But some of their choices are kinda weird. Shatterglass Starscream, sure, without the yellowing, that's a great choice. The Battle Chargers? I despise these two, but I know people have been craving these for a good long while. But then there's oddities where the choices are confusing. I really like the Earthrise Wheeljack mold, especially with the killer car mode. But I'm sorta alone in this statement. Many collectors were hoping for a complete redo with better toon-style proportions, especially after we just got the Devastation version. I can see why many would consider this a letdown, though some figures probably don't need an update like Hound or Sunstreaker. Those two are solid molds as is, coloration issues aside. I'd certainly prefer they just re-release them instead of wasting resources on remakes that are a massive step down from the last outings. But especially with these two cases, I can't be the only one who's noticed some severe mold degradation on them, right? The plastic looks weirdly melted and the joint tolerances are weirdly goopy. The way these turned out feels less like a calculated second run and more like throwing shit together at the last minute to fill an extra slot. As such, it's hard to reconcile my feelings about these reissues. Some of them are genuinely great, but others feel like they're taking advantage of their infamy for high prices. Would these figures be as well received if they didn't cost so much on the aftermarket? Should we stop criticizing these releases altogether simply because they're what people wanted? It's honestly difficult to pass, and I still don't have a concrete answer. With Transformers kinda being the way it is at the moment, many have ventured forth to find other franchises that populate a similar space. In doing this, countless have taken to a new Korean transforming robot series, Metal Cardbot. While nowhere near as big as Transformers here in the West, this competition is actually really good. It's a great excuse to give Hasbro a kick up the arse to actually start investing in their own franchise again. There's a problem though, not with the show itself, not at all. It's a problem with myself. Metal Cardbot is fantastic, there's no denying it. But no matter how much I try try to get into it, I just cannot seem to. And yet a lot of people keep asking, even requesting me to make reviews on it, and part of me really wants to. And yet, I can't. It's taken a while to figure out why this is the case, and I think I finally figured out what the problem is. I have the diabolical combination of autism and ADHD. Yeah, big shocker, I know. I didn't actually have a diagnosis until about 2 years ago, though, because the one I had as a child was thrown out in an effort to have me get over it and turn out normal. So I've been doing a lot of introspection on how I engage with the world, and I have found something really infuriating. Autistic folk often have hyperfixations. Some have trains, some have dinosaurs, I have Transformers. Not transforming robots, Transformers specifically. Now, I don't know if this is something other neurodiverse people get, but when something is in the Roche limit of Transformers specifically, my anxiety goes into hyperdrive, and I feel an immense sense of guilt for engaging with it.
It's not Transformers. You should be engaging with Transformers instead. You're a piece of shit for engaging in this other thing. Stop it.
It's the exact same reason I could never get into Beastbox or Tobot before that. I wanted to, but no matter how much I tried, I just felt this lingering sense that I was a bad person for doing so. The only exception is Brave, I think, but only because my subconscious rationalizes it as part of the Transformers multiverse. I'm okay with non-transforming Transformers and even third party, which is literal IP theft, but whenever I try to go into that Roche limit, it's just like a brick hits me in the forehead. This might just be a me thing specifically, as the whole thing about neurodiversity is, well, not being the traditional way in which a brain is wired, but it is so annoying. I can get into other series that are completely different, like Gundam or Pat Labor, but when it's transforming sentient robots, no, me, I'm a bad person. I do hope someday I'm able to break out of this rut and engage in other adjacent franchises. Show some love to other more inventive series, but for now, this is where I'm at, watching the Titanic sink and unable to leave the ship. Godspeed, Metal Cardbot fans. You travel forth where I cannot. Hello there, I'm DrLockdown, and if you've only ever seen one or two of my videos, you've probably known me as that one reviewer who doesn't actually like Transformers and only whinges about everything. That's not actually a true assumption, but it is one I'm seeing going around a lot more. So today I'd like to explain the negativity bias of social media algorithms. See, I always try to balance what I talk about. I love what I love, I hate what I hate, and there's a very big disparity between what I say and what websites promote. Fact is, algorithms are designed to keep you as locked into their ecosystem as possible, and through this, there's a negativity bias. Whenever I post something positive, it does okay, but when I do something negative, it seems to do a lot better overall. Even if the figure isn't particularly one people are that knowledgeable about. Part of it's the theatricality, but part of it's also the fact that people are more likely to engage in the discourse if the video is negative. More comments equals more ads watched equals more revenue for the platform, and thusly most of the videos YouTube pushes are the negative ones I put out. Now, of course, there are outliers, but predictably these are also ones that spark a lot of discourse, and in some cases, rage. It's simply what the algorithm wants. YouTube especially doesn't want people talking about figures they love. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, as they don't particularly have a lot of control over the algorithm, they want people getting as angry as possible so that they spend as much time on the platform as possible. I know I'm not the only person who's affected by this nonsense. Several of my YouTube friends suffer the same fate. Endlessly labeled whingers and grifters simply because they won't take Hasbro's shit and offer toothless critique on everything. Doesn't matter if I genuinely adore some figures in the same ratio, that's just not what people see. I can't control how I'm perceived on this platform. It takes but a millisecond for people to form a first impression, and overturning that is nigh impossible. All I can do is be honest and truthful and talk about the things that I feel passionate about, whether positive or negative. It's a futile effort to fight algorithmic perception. Believe me, I've tried for so many years. But honestly, it's much healthier to just focus on staying in your lane and being honest about what you believe in. I love Transformers, and no matter what folks think about me, I'm going to be honest about my thoughts on them, positive or negative. Jeez, this bastard really caused quite a stir in the community, didn't he? While the Primes have all been caught up in their own arguments, none have really lit the fandom ablaze as much as Nexus Prime. In the lead up to release, nobody in my immediate vicinity was feeling the love. I'm sure there were fans, but they were so severely drowned out by hate that it was impossible to find. And yet, on release, a lot came around quite quickly, and I myself am included in that category. I think he might actually be my favorite figure of the wave. Liege Maximo isn't out down under yet, but I don't see anyone overtaking this fellow. And yet, as much as I'd like to, it's impossible to really review him in his current state. At present, he is simply incomplete, and we're just missing the full picture. There's plenty to love here. The sculpt, paint, and build are all immaculate. I guess it's to be expected of another Hasui banger, but here especially, this feels dense. The posing is pretty good, minus some awkward hollowness, but it's not that hateful. Part of me wants to modify the pegs to free up the butterfly joint, but I'm not sure if these will double up on a potential frame later down the line, so they'll stay for now. The plastic has a lovely metallic fleck to it, not too dissimilar from Collaborative Twin Mill, and the paint all over is subtle but really brings it to life. The engineering is super fun with some really cool flips and turns, and the alt mode, I don't actually mind it. It's surprisingly fun to swoosh around, especially for what is essentially a flying brick with mandatory parts forming pieces. I think it would have been a lot better received if they'd added some extra shit in the middle, but it's certainly better than a lot of other recent alt modes, both in and out of Age of the Primes. I'd also have preferred a more solid no section, but this is fun, genuinely. But beyond that, I can't really say anything. It's not that I don't want to, it's just that the story isn't finished. Fact is, this toy is a victim of corporate circumstance. Several ideas they had were thrown out in favor of much safer bets, which are understandable, but still frustrating. The designers weren't even allowed to advertise any intercompatibility with other figures because they came out the previous year, and on top of that, they can't comment on the future because of corporate red tape. So basically, they forced him to go out into the world without a leg to stand on, an episodic release advertised as a full experience when that was never the intention. Lease is getting dedicated combiner limbs, but what does that actually mean? We can glean from some listings, but how close to the original Energon designs will they follow? Will we get a dedicated frame? Will he be forever forced to use the Superion frame, which really doesn't fit him? Will DNA Design come to the rescue and make their own if they don't?
I don't know!
Fact is, the full context simply isn't there. There's a reason I don't tend to review combiners until they're 100% done. Without understanding the full picture, a lot of the decisions just won't make sense. Remember when people complain about Legacy Dragstrip not having proper combination elements in his conversion? That was a thing, and people are quick to forget. This whole release just ends up reminding me a lot of Betatron. Remember that weird standalone Combiner Wars scatter shot where they told everyone to combine it with a bunch of random members, only to ignore it anyway and release a box set later? This feels a lot like that, and since we're only at the start of that journey, it's simply impossible to tell. So for now, I quite like this figure, and I'm eager to see where his story goes. At present, he's a fun standalone figure, but in the future, who knows? In a positive way. At least I think so. JP fans sent me a package, or rather, they sent me 2 more packages. We're back at it again with some more freight forwarding goodness. After the last one did reasonably well, we're gonna do another one. They sort of split it between the two. I'm guessing because of the regulations of posting that thing. I'll do that one last. Unboxing time. Yes, yes. Oh, and it's sealed too. Yeah. After the last video on this lad did so well, and after realizing this bastard happened to be the Superlink version as well, I figured I'd go and complete the set. And god damn, that is gorgeous. Review coming soon. Not right away. I've got some other projects I need to work on first, but definitely expect to see this lad very, very soon. And not up for review, we have Legends EZ Collection Devastator. This one's a bit more of a personal story. I bought this with my own money, just because I kind of had more of a personal reason for it. For years and years, I really wanted a Revenge of the Fallen Devastator from the second movie, growing up with the second movie, and I never really got that. I stupidly asked my family for the Supreme class version, and it was utterly terrible. Easily the 3rd worst gift I've ever received, the second being that awful Doctor Who Evacuation Earth game, and the first being a towel. The person who gifted me that isn't going to watch this, but seriously? A towel from a discount store? Really? I then bought the G2 version, was never really satisfied with that. I then bought the regular version, but it was stolen. When we ended up selling the house, someone ended up taking one of the boxes that this was in, and I never saw it again. So this feels like it's finally coming to a head all these years later, finally owning this bastard. It has been a long time coming. And that leaves us with the last box, separated because it's got batteries inside it. We wouldn't want to get corroded with battery acid. JP fans, this is a joke. This is a joke. This is a funny one. So initially, this was going to be a gift for a friend of mine, but it turns out they are not that big into 3DSs. So this whole plan fell apart. But I now have a second 3DS. I've always wanted to hack one of these, and this really gives me an opportunity to do so. Wow, that is so pristine. That is so much more pristine than mine. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to fit all of this in 3 minutes, because this is a banger of a haul. This is probably one of the most excited deliveries I've had all year, and I'm really excited to mess around with all of this. Anywho, that's it from me. See you in a couple of weeks when we review this bastard. It's Pride Month! And you know what that means? Tangentially related Transformers figures. Yes, indeed, for almost as long as the modern internet-based fandom has been around, people have associated random Transformers with the various pride flags they hold near and dear. Are these characters actually queer in any way? Not particularly, but I figured it would be a fun exercise to associate color schemes, because I know it's not just me who does it. First one is easy, my flag, the pansexual flag. We got Panlock for that, or rather Toxitron Collection G2 Grimlock. Honestly, the color association is the whole reason I bought him and is a very worthy addition to the team. For the bi folks, many random members take to assigning Spinister, with the gorgeous purple and pink combo. Obviously, he'd be a disaster bi, wildly flailing around yet unable to pull any game. Keep trying though, buddy. Standard Rainbow is a tough one, but the closest would probably be Combiner Wars Skyrain. It covers enough of the colors to work well. The MLM community would probably get G2 Swoop, while the WLW community will get Prototype Colors RC, because come on, those colors are a dead ringer. Impactor for the intersex folk, while the genderqueer folk would pretty comfortably claim Hauler. The non-binary finies could nab Sunspot, who's a hella underrated deco, but for one special non-binary finie, the love of my life, the final flag is a bit difficult. But I think I found one. King Poseidon. It's the trans flag colors, it's a combiner, so it's plural like my partner, and it's a bunch of fish like my partner, the fishy system. Honestly, this is the whole reason I did this short, just to show off King Poseidon like this. Of course, none of this actually matters. It's all just a bunch of coincidental color patterns. But it's a fun experiment and a nice reminder to keep that sense of whimsy in a world trying to get rid of it, among other things. Shine on, queer folk, whether you be woke or you be EP, shine on all the same. Also, someone in the comments, please find something for the gender fluid flag. I got stumped and got nothing. I don't particularly get Dr. Wu's Legends lineup. When I first messed with their figures, they were fine, make no mistake, but I just assumed they'd crash and burn like so many Legends companies before them. I never really paid much attention to their other figures because I genuinely didn't think they'd take off that much. I mean, they were initially designed to go with the Earthrise Micromaster stations. That seems like a recipe for disaster. Yes, introducing the first third-party toy line to sell 0 units worldwide. But to my surprise, I was actually proven wrong and these things took the off. And with YouTubers like Diaclona and Papermelon singing their praises, I figured I'd give them a shot. And yeah, they're good, but they're not particularly amazing. Granted, my lineup is a little bit limited, but most of what they put out is just fine. Perfectly cromulent figures that make for decent pocket toys just with a hint of collector-focused flair. I can see why so many people covet them, but they just don't hit the same for me. I think a lot of it comes down to how far I am in my collecting journey. I've really been with this whole thing since the birth of third-party Legends, and as such, the novelty of having a bunch of small figures to put on a desk has worn off. If I had gone into Doctor Wu with a fresh pair of eyes, maybe I'd be more into them, and had I gone into third-party Legends with the ideology I have now, maybe I wouldn't have bought so many random figures that I don't actually like. This might seem like a case of right place, wrong time for me, and it does disappoint me a bit. But hey, they still make some cracking figures from time to time. Some of them are honestly list contenders and blow the official versions out of the water. And there are upcoming releases of theirs that genuinely blow me away, ones I'm excited to give a shot. But after what I've experienced, nothing really grabs me by the gizzard and insists that I give it attention, and coming to terms with that has definitely been a process. But that's part of collecting, not everything is going to be to your taste. You really shouldn't force yourself to buy things you know aren't for you, that's called hoarding. And at the very least, if you despise something, put it on the aftermarket. Don't hold it around for no reason. These aren't at that level, they spark an inkling of joy and a pinch of fun in the right circumstance. But sometimes you gotta be more than just little guys. Sometimes there's just gotta be some more pizzazz in the sauce. But for those who like them or even adore them, fantastic for you. May the line continue for years to come. So, Superlink Bruticus was a really lovely set, and by and large everything worked out pretty damn well. But of course, every combiner has a weakest member, and that designation pretty squarely fell on Blight for this lineup. Not a bad mold, but a truly heinous deco that just looked really gross. So, as I hinted in my review, I did in fact end up going for the Hasbro Energon version, just to see if I could improve the lineup just a smidge. And honestly, yeah, I do think Hasbro did better in this instance. By and large, the paint application positions are the same, with a few minor exceptions, but the color choices are just way better. The yellow is naturally more appealing, the black doesn't clash as much, even the head looks way better with the extra purple goatee, providing some much needed visual interest. Even the purple is a much better shade. Most of what's on show is a massive improvement. There are downsides though, and most of them can be seen in vehicle mode. Nothing that damns this version to being even worse, but there are little things, like the paint on the front being a slightly different and slightly worse shape. This is also the one place where I think the black doesn't do as well as the gunmetal, because this front section just looks weird. You now have the power link symbol, which aside from looking a bit silly to be honest, means he'll no longer fit with the rest of them 100%. It's a minor cohesion thing, but it does bug me occasionally. He also changes some of the detail, and it just leads to a lot of the yellow being on show. And said yellow is a visibly cheaper shade. As sickly as the Super Link version was, it did have a much nicer sheen to it. A happy middle ground between the two shades with the shade of Energon but the finish of Super Link would have been perfect for me. In the end, I'm not sure if it was all worth it. The finish really does make it stand out a metric ton. Yes, it is by and large a better toy, but the cohesion really does suffer a lot for it. Maybe this is a lesson, one in accepting figures' shortcomings and taking into account the whole instead of individual parts. Not just figures, of course, combiners too. There's a subtle balance of making everything line up properly. Maybe that is the more important thing than each member actually being amazing, much as it pains me to admit. So red and yellow are difficult colors to do. It's just a weird quirk of toy production. Most of the pigments are piss easy to get right, but whenever a figure uses these paints, especially on top of darker colors, so often it comes out underdone and kinda icky. So why is this? It keeps happening over and over, and an explanation would be honestly quite the blessing. Well, I had a chat with Zep from the Daft Brothers, the same expert who taught me about the plasticizer bullshit on the Transcanning series video that nobody watched, because who the f cares about the Transcanning series? So it turns out it's all thanks to this bullshit called pigment density. See, thanks to the way wavelengths work, some pigments are just naturally going to be lighter or darker, and, especially important, thinner or thicker. Some colors just naturally absorb more energy than others, and often that can translate to, well, paint. Red and yellow, and to an extent orange, are probably the worst instances of this, where it's far more common for light to bleed through. Especially when put against another pigment that's a lot denser and darker, like, say, a dark blue, or especially a black, bleed becomes a lot more common. Now, the solution to this is to have an undercoat of white. It's basically what they teach you in Painting 101. But sometimes they skip this step, either due to budgeting, tamper graphing, or, especially in third parties' case, not particularly giving a shit. It's tough, really tough, and I really commend designers for getting this right when they can. So, next time you see a figure that has a red or yellow paint application against a really dark shade, make sure to salute the deco designer for their hard work. It's tough making everything work properly, and they deserve the kudos. Fiddle Toy Check. It's about halfway through 2026. Well, a little more than halfway, and I want to know your favorite Fiddle Toys of the year so far. For me, it's been 3 specifically. Earlier in the year, I nabbed Universe 2008 Roadbuster. Funnily enough, it's actually from a 2-pack I already had the other member for, but while that member never really hit me strongly, Buster absolutely did. Just a super fun toy to flip back and forth with lots of really cool extra features that help it look excellent while doing it. It's the kind of transformation that you just don't get anymore, that simple and chunky fun that they simply cannot do these days. Though modern toys can still have their own excellence, the second major Fiddle toy is easily Devastation Bumblebee. He's just so fun. The engineering is damn fine, and I haven't had a figure that poses this stylishly in a long-ass time. And the toy hacks make him even sexier, just a gorgeous release all around. But those two aren't the only fuckers that refuse to leave my desk. I've somehow caught the Iron Factory bug again, being reminded how awesome they tend to do stuff. Both style and substance with this one, with an incredibly refined aesthetic and a delightful transformation. It's got me real excited for some of their upcoming releases. After this and Lio Kaiser, I have absolute faith in their soon-to-be started Menasor. Don't know if it'll outdo the Magic Square version, but I can't wait regardless. Whenever I'm in a moment of downtime or whenever I'm feeling stressed, I come back to these, and that's pretty cool. So, with that, I want to hear what your Fiddle toys are. What do you keep coming back to, even with how crazy the world is? After all, they are in fact toys. What's the point if you don't play with them?